close the damn door. If anyone sees you in here, I'll lose my job. He didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just leaned against the inside frame of her office door like he belonged there, letting it click shut behind him with a soft snick. His backpack slid off his shoulder and hit the carpet with a thud. Then maybe lock it next time, he said. She looked up from her desk, steel in her eyes. 43 years old, 2 divorces deep, a head of English at a community college nobody brags about, and now staring down a 22-year-old student who kept showing up late, kept writing essays that cut like razors, and kept looking at her like he could see through her skin. You don't get to be clever, she said. Sit down. He didn't. You liked my story? It was arrogant, she said. Unstructured. Obvious metaphors. But yes. I liked it. He smiled with just one side of his mouth, too casual, too knowing. She hated it. She also hated the way her stomach tightened when he looked at her like that. And the character, he said. The older woman who thinks she's too broken to want anything. She wasn't broken, she said. She was realistic. Same thing. That did it. She stood, palms flat on the desk. What do you want, Ben? His smile dropped. For a second, the air between them shifted. Not playful. Not sarcastic. Just silence, and whatever was stuck under it. He said, quieter this time, to know why you won't look at me unless it's to critique me. You're my student. I'll be done in 6 weeks. You're 22. So what? She exhaled through her nose and turned away, reaching for her mug. The coffee was cold. Of course it was. You want me to say I think about you? She asked. You want to hear that it scares me? That you sit in the back row and I know you do it, so I'll have to look further to see you? His breath caught. She turned back to him. I'm not doing this. He stepped forward. Just once. His voice lowered. What if I'm not afraid? You should be. And she meant it. Every word. She was too tired to play the game, too old to get burned again. She had a daughter in college, a reputation built on being the one who never cracked. But here he was in her office after hours, his hair damp from the rain, that same leather bracelet on his wrist he'd worn since the first week of class. That stupid thing should have looked juvenile. Instead it looked worn, real, like everything about him. You're married? He asked. No. Seeing anyone? She narrowed her eyes. That's a no, he said, already reading her silence. The heat in her face rose fast. She hated that he could get under her skin so easily. This is not a conversation, she said. It is now. She should have told him to leave. She should have raised her voice, reminded him he was just a student, a talented one, sure, but still just a kid playing at depth. But she didn't. And he didn't move. So she said, sit down. Just for 5 minutes. He did. They said nothing for a beat too long. She tried to focus on the stack of papers in front of her, but her pen barely moved. She could feel him watching her. Why do you write like that? She asked suddenly. Like what? Like someone twice your age. He shrugged. Maybe I've already lived twice. Cute. He leaned forward. You ever write anything personal? She froze. That's not relevant. That's not a no. She glanced up. You wrote that you don't assign what you haven't wrestled with yourself, he said. That's what you told us. So I figure, you've been through some of it. And what is it, exactly? Regret. That landed too well. For a second, she wasn't in her office. She was in a diner parking lot 10 years ago, walking away from someone she should have stayed with. She was standing on the front porch of her second ex-husband's house while he threw her manuscript into the yard. Ben, she said, warning in her voice. He stood again. Quiet, slow. Then he crossed the room in 3 steps. She should have stopped him. But her mouth wouldn't move. She watched his hand reach toward her face, pause just inches from her jaw. He didn't touch her. He just whispered, "Can I?" Her voice, when it came, was almost too soft to hear. "No." He nodded. He backed off. "And just before he turned to leave," she said, "your story was arrogant because it was too safe." He looked back at her. "You keep circling the real thing," she said. "But you're afraid to say what you actually want." And then, to her own horror, she added, "So am I." That made him smile. Not the cocky kind, not this time. It was gentler. Slower. The kind of smile she hadn't seen in years, not even in the mirror. She didn't smile back. But she didn't stop him when he reached for the doorknob and said, "Maybe next time, you let it slip." Then he left. And for a long time, she didn't move. She just stared at the door, heart hammering, unsure who she was more afraid of, him or herself. The campus was too small. She had noted when she took the job that she'd see the same faces at the coffee shop, at the faculty parking lot, at the end-of-term mixers they called collegial engagement. What she hadn't counted on was how small it would feel once she caught herself scanning every hallway for one person. That Friday, after her department meeting had dragged an extra 20 minutes thanks to Professor Riley's monologue about grant funding, she stepped out into the late afternoon and immediately saw Ben leaning against the railing outside the library, earbuds in, hood up, reading something on his phone like he wasn't waiting for her, like he just happened to be there. His eyes flicked up once and back down, just a second too late to pretend he hadn't seen her. She didn't slow down, didn't say anything, but her pulse kicked up in a way that made her grip her keys tighter. That night, she stayed later in her office than usual. She told herself she was catching up on grading, that the silence helped her focus, but she couldn't stop replaying the last conversation. The way he stood so still. The way she didn't tell him to leave right away. The way her own voice sounded when she asked for 5 minutes, like she wasn't even sure what she wanted them for. Just after 9, she heard a knock. Not loud, just 3 slow taps like he already knew she wouldn't be surprised. "I shouldn't be here," he said as soon as she opened the door. "Then why are you?" "Because you looked like you wanted to say something last time and didn't." She crossed her arms, leaned on the edge of the desk. "This is ridiculous. You're risking both of us." "Am I?" "Yes. And if you have any respect for me, you'll walk out." He didn't move. "What if I do respect you? What if that's why I'm here?" "That's not how respect works." He stepped in and closed the door behind him, softer this time. "Then tell me to stop." "I just did." "Then say it like you mean it." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Not because she didn't mean it, but because some part of her didn't. He didn't wait for her to figure it out. "I'm not playing with this. I'm not trying to turn it into something dramatic or dangerous. But I'm also not going to act like I don't see what this is. You're 22. You don't know what this is. I know when someone doesn't sleep right. I know when someone looks at me like they wish they hadn't." She stepped around the desk, now just a few feet from him. "Do you want a medal for that?" "No," he said, quieter now. "I want a reason." "You want reasons?" she said, voice tightening. "Fine. I'm 43. I've been through enough to know that this kind of thing ends badly. You're impulsive. You don't think past the next few days. You've got 10,000 options ahead of you and this isn't one of them." He nodded, slowly, like he was hearing her but not accepting it. "Okay. Now tell me something true." She stared at him. He waited. Then she said it. "I think about you." It came out flat, like a fact, not a confession. But he reacted like she'd just taken the first breath after being underwater. "And I hate myself for it," she added. He didn't flinch. "You don't need to hate yourself. Don't tell me how to feel. I'm not. I'm telling you I feel it too." A long pause. Her eyes didn't leave his. "You know how dangerous this is," she said. "I'm not telling anyone. That's not what I mean. I mean for you. He nodded again, slower this time. Yeah. I know. Then she walked past him and opened the door. Go. We both need space to forget this. But he didn't move. And just as she was about to snap at him, to remind him this wasn't cute, wasn't romantic, wasn't anything that would ever be allowed in daylight, he reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and held it out to her. What is it? Something I wrote. For class. But I didn't turn it in. She didn't take it. You're still my student. It's not about you. That's worse. He put it on her desk anyway and walked out without another word. She stared at the paper for a long time after the door clicked shut. She didn't open it until she got home. It was a poem. Raw, uneven, not polished, but real. It wasn't about a woman. It was about the space between wanting and restraint. About the way certain things pull you even when you know they'll break you. The last lines weren't subtle. Sometimes you reach out not to touch, but just to know the heat's still there. Sometimes you leave the room because staying would cost you your name. She folded it back up and tucked it in the back of her drawer. Then she poured herself a drink and stared at nothing. 2 days later, her sister called. You seeing someone? She choked on her coffee. What? You've been weird. I can hear it. You sound lighter but also like you're trying too hard not to sound lighter. You're imagining things. Her sister laughed. I always know when you're lying. I've known since we were kids. There's no one. Aha. And just as she hung up, her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from a blocked number. Friday. 9 p.m., back lot behind the stadium. Just to talk. She didn't reply. She also didn't delete it. She didn't respond to the message, but when Friday night came, she found herself driving past the stadium anyway. Her hand stayed on the wheel, windows up, headlights off as she rolled into the back lot and saw him there, leaning against the passenger door of his car like it didn't matter if she showed up or not, like he'd still wait either way. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just watched her pull in, watched the engine stop, watched the moment between decision and movement when she could still drive off. Then she opened her door. She stepped out without a word, arms crossed, jacket zipped too high. He offered her nothing at first, not even an attempt at charm. He just gestured at the passenger side and waited. She walked toward it slowly. It felt stupid and reckless and completely wrong. She got in anyway. The inside of his car smelled like old coffee and something faintly metallic. The windows were fogging already from how cold it was outside. He didn't say anything for almost a full minute. The quiet was thick, not comfortable, not unbearable, just there. I'm not going to touch you, he said finally. I didn't ask you to. I know. She looked over. Then why say it? Because I know what it would look like. And I'm not trying to corner you. She exhaled. Then what are you doing? I don't know, he said. But I haven't been able to think about anything else all week. She leaned her head back against the seat. You have no idea how complicated this is. I think I do. No, she said. You think you're being brave. You think this is about honesty or defiance or wanting something rare. It's not. It's about real consequences. It's about 100 small things that build into something you don't get to undo later. He looked straight ahead, jaw tight. I'm not trying to undo anything. Maybe you should. He turned to her. Do you think I'm just chasing a thrill? I think you haven't failed hard enough yet to understand what it costs. He didn't respond. She could feel the weight of that silence, the sting of pride hitting its limit. But he didn't push back. Instead, he said something she didn't expect. Do you think I remind you of someone? That caught her off guard. What? Someone you knew before. Someone younger. No. Then why do you hesitate like you're reliving something? Because I've already lived enough to know how fast things rot when no one's allowed to see them. He nodded. And yet you came. She looked out the window. I shouldn't have. But you did. Neither of them moved. The heater hummed low, throwing weak warmth against the cold glass. She said, more to herself than to him, there's no version of this where we're not lying to someone. I'm not lying. You're not being honest either. I'm not telling anyone because I know what they'd do with it. That's different. You're 22, she said again, as if saying it enough times would turn it into a wall instead of just a fact. I've been on my own since I was 16. I'm not a child. She turned to him sharply. I'm not your experiment. I know that. You think I don't get looked at enough already? That people don't whisper if I wear something too fitted or raise my voice in a meeting? He sat up straighter. I'm not one of those people. But they matter. Their opinions matter. Whether you think they should or not. I've built something here. It's not much, but it's mine. And if this gets out, they'll take it from me. I wouldn't let that happen. You wouldn't have a say. He stayed quiet for a long time. Then he reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a notebook, flipped through it, tore out a page. He handed it to her. She didn't take it. You write a lot of things you don't turn in, she said. They're not for class. Then who are they for? I don't know, he said. Maybe me. Maybe you. She took the page. Read it once. Read it again. It wasn't about her. Not directly. It was about waiting. About someone standing still in a world that kept moving past them. It was raw and sharp and unfinished. Just like the last one. I shouldn't be here, she said. You are. I'll leave. Okay. She didn't open the door right away. She looked at him, studied the way he didn't try to stop her. That made it worse somehow. Then her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting a work email or some late-night student question. But it was a message from a colleague. Heard you've been giving extra feedback to Ben Reeves. Careful, students talk. Her face froze. Her throat went tight. She didn't show it to him. She just said, someone knows. He leaned forward. What do you mean? She read the message aloud. Flat. Cold. He cursed under his breath. She looked at him, eyes locked. This is what I meant. Then we stop. She waited. He said it again. If it's going to ruin things for you, we stop. She didn't answer. She just opened the door and stepped out into the cold night, the paper still clutched in her hand. She didn't look back until she reached her car. And even then, he was already gone. She didn't see him for 3 days. He wasn't in class, didn't email, didn't hover outside her office the way he used to. The absence shouldn't have mattered, but it did. Every time the hallway went quiet, every time the classroom door opened and it wasn't him, she felt something shift inside her, not panic, not guilt, but something more stripped down. She told herself it was relief. Then she told herself to grow up. On the 4th day, she walked into the copy room and found his name scratched out from a list on the sideboard where students sign up for advisor meetings. It was subtle. Too subtle for most people to notice, but she knew his handwriting, and she knew the petty mark of someone trying not to draw attention while making a point. Someone had erased him like he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. She went back to her office and sat without moving for 15 minutes. Then she pulled out her phone and typed his name, hovered over it, and deleted it. A clean break. That was the plan. Then, as if the universe wanted to test her one last time, a familiar knock hit the door. She didn't even say anything. Just looked up as he stepped in and closed it behind him. He looked different. Tighter. Not tired exactly, but pulled in, like he'd already braced for an outcome before it happened. I didn't plan to come, he said. You shouldn't be here. I know. Someone erased your name from the sign-up sheet. I saw. Do you know who? I've got a guess. He didn't elaborate. She didn't ask. The only other person who might have cared enough to do something like that was sitting 2 offices down. Brian, mid-30s, ambitious, too polite to be trustworthy, and exactly the type to couch a warning as a favor. I got pulled aside yesterday, Ben said. Student services. They asked if I was getting appropriate academic feedback. She tensed. What did you say? That I was fine. That you weren't giving me anything you weren't giving anyone else. She stood up. Walked to the window. We can't be in the same room anymore. Not alone. I know. And you can't show up here like this. I wasn't going to. I had to drop something off. What? He stepped forward and placed a manila envelope on her desk. She didn't open it. It's the full portfolio, he said. Everything for the final. You're early. I won't be here next week. She turned back to him. Why? I'm dropping the course. Her stomach sank, but her voice didn't change. Because of me? No. Because of them. Because this place feels like it's got eyes in the walls. That's what happens when people talk. No, he said, and now his voice cracked slightly, that's what happens when no one defends you. She flinched. He saw it. I didn't come here to fight, he said. I came to finish something. You're overreacting. Am I? You think I can walk around here and not feel it? The stares? The silence when I walk into a room? I didn't do anything. Neither did I. Yes, you did, he said. You walked away. She didn't answer. He stepped back, hand already on the doorknob, but not turning it yet. I told you I wouldn't touch you. I didn't. I told you I wouldn't ruin anything. I haven't. But this place doesn't care about facts. It cares about stories. And someone's already writing one about us. They can't prove anything. They don't need to. He left then. No pause, no last glance. Just gone. She didn't go home that night. She stayed in her office long enough for the cleaning crew to come through and flick the lights, a silent cue to wrap it up. On her way out, she passed Brian in the parking lot. He was standing by his car, talking on the phone, but when he saw her, he ended the call. Hey, he said. She didn't stop. I heard Reeves dropped. She turned slowly. Did you say something? Just made sure the right people were aware there might be boundary concerns. She didn't raise her voice, didn't move closer, just looked him in the eye and said, You don't know anything. I know what I saw, he said. I know he stayed late a few times. I know your door was locked more than once. It's not hard to connect things. There's nothing to connect. Good, he said. Then this conversation never happened. She drove home and drank until the silence in her apartment felt manageable. Then she sat on the floor and opened Ben's portfolio. The writing was sharper than anything he'd submitted before. Every piece felt urgent. There was a short story about a woman who made herself smaller every time someone looked at her too long. Another about a boy who stopped talking after someone he trusted told him too much. But it was the last piece that did it, a single-page dialogue, no setting, no names, just one line after the other. You still think about it? Every day. Why don't you say anything? Because you'd leave. She read it twice. Then she folded it and put it back in the envelope. The next day was the academic conference. She wasn't scheduled to speak, just introduce one of the panels. She wore black, kept her hair pinned up, carried a clipboard she didn't need. Halfway through the afternoon, she walked past the back row of the main hall and saw him there. He hadn't registered. He wasn't supposed to be on campus. But he was sitting with a notebook, watching her. Not smiling. Not hiding. Just there. After the panel, during the Q&A, someone asked a question about ethical lines in mentorship. The moderator deflected. Then someone else asked what emotional bias meant in the context of evaluation. And suddenly all eyes were on her. She felt the moment coming before it hit. She could have stayed silent. Could have let it pass. Instead, she took the mic and said, "Sometimes, when a student is extraordinary, people assume the worst." There was a pause. Then a hand went up, a colleague, one she didn't trust. "Are you speaking from experience?" She looked at Ben. He didn't blink. She looked back at the room. "I'm speaking as someone who knows how fast rumors become currency." And then, without waiting for the next question, she stepped off the stage and walked straight out of the hall. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just walking. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "We need to talk. Tonight." She didn't answer the message. She turned her phone off and threw it in the bottom drawer of her desk before leaving the office for the night, but she didn't go home. She drove for an hour with no direction, barely watching the road, eyes catching on traffic lights. She ran yellow. Her hand stayed at 10 and 2 like it would keep everything in place. The lot behind the stadium was empty when she got there except for one car. His. She parked beside it and sat still, waiting for the engine to cool and the quiet to settle. Then she stepped out. He didn't say anything when she approached. He was sitting on the hood of his car, arms resting on his knees like he'd been there for a while. There was no greeting, no attempt to soften it. "I shouldn't have come to the conference," he said. "You shouldn't be here now." "I know." She stayed standing. "Then why?" "I needed to see you." "That's not a reason." "I think it is." She shook her head. "It's done. The story's out. Maybe not the full version, but enough of it." "I didn't tell anyone." "I didn't either." "But they still know." "No, they think they know." "There's a difference." "Doesn't matter anymore." "That room today," he stopped, ran a hand through his hair, looked away. "I watched you scan for me. You knew I was there before you even saw me. You need to let this go." "I'm trying." "Not hard enough." "What do you want from me?" "Distance. Silence. Space to undo this." "Undo what?" "This mistake." He stood then. Not rushed, not angry, just too calm. "Is that what you call it?" he asked. "What else would you call something that's been tearing through both of us?" "I call it the only thing that's felt real in months." She stepped back. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make it sound noble." "It's not noble. It's just honest." She exhaled. Long and sharp. "Honesty doesn't erase damage." He moved toward her, just one step. "So what now? You walk away and pretend none of it happened?" "I already tried pretending. And it didn't work." They stood in silence again. The parking lot was still empty, the sky hanging low with the first signs of rain. Somewhere in the distance, a generator buzzed. Everything else was too quiet. He said, softer now, "I'm not trying to burn your life down." "You don't have to. Someone else will." "I don't care about them." "But I do." He stopped. Looked at her like he finally understood something he hadn't before. "You're not afraid of them," he said. "You're afraid of what it says about you." She didn't respond. "You think if you give in, it means they're right. That you lost control. That you're weak." She still said nothing. "I never asked you to protect me," he added. "But I think you've been using that as a reason to keep this buried. And maybe I should." He stepped in again. Close this time. Closer than he had any right to be. "You asked me not to touch you." "I didn't. You said you needed space, I gave it. You never once said you didn't feel something back. Because it's irrelevant." "No. It's everything." She looked at him. Eyes steady. I don't want to be the reason you lose what you've built, he said. But I also don't want to be someone you erase to make it easier. You were never just someone. Then say it. She didn't. The rain started, slow and even, tapping against the cars and pavement in steady rhythm. Neither of them moved. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was just there. He looked down, wiped his hands on his jeans, then met her eyes again. I'm leaving, he said. I transferred. Different school. Different state. It's done. She felt her throat close. When? End of the week. I'm already packed. She didn't speak. He nodded. I figured you'd want to know. Or maybe not. But I couldn't leave without saying it. She looked away. Then he added, You don't owe me anything. Not a goodbye, not closure, nothing. But I think you'll miss me. And I think you'll hate yourself for it. She stayed quiet. Say something, he said. But she didn't. So he stepped back, opened his car door, got in. Started the engine. She watched his headlights swing wide as he pulled out of the lot. And then he was gone. She stood in the rain for a while. No umbrella. No coat. Just the quiet sound of water in the space where something used to be. Later, alone in her apartment, she opened the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out the folder. His writing was still there. The poem. The dialogue. The pages no one else would ever read. She didn't flip through them. Just sat with them in her lap. The next morning, she walked into her office and found a letter on her desk. No name. Just a blank envelope. Inside was a single line on a torn page. What would have happened if we weren't scared? She stared at it for a long time. Then she put it in the same folder and shut the drawer. No one ever spoke about it again.